Assalamu alaikum everyone. This is Taimur Khan again here with another episode of Startup Talks. Today we are joined by Asif Khan. He is the founder of Sidekick. He is also a director at SAF Holdings and he holds a master's in law from Cambridge. Uh, the startup Sidekick, I'm going to leave most of it to him to talk about. So, Asif, thank you very much for coming on the show. How are you doing?
Thank you for having me. I'm well, thank you.
That's great. So, what's Sidekick all about? Looking at your profile, you're a lawyer by profession, and for some time I was thinking that is basically digitizing law practice in Pakistan. But when I research, it has nothing about practicing law. It's more about providing human resource. Am I right?
I think your voice broke off for the last maybe 2 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but just to give you a little background, so Sidekick is an online marketplace that connects startups and SMEs in Pakistan with vetted lawyers, accountants, tax advisors,
Mm-hmm.
and finance professionals as well.
Right.
Um, so we there is a law aspect, but it's not law only. So essentially, we are a B2B platform. We're connecting essentially small size firms as well as some independent practitioners. I mean, professional service firms. So lawyers, accountants, tax advisors, finance professionals
Mm-hmm.
with startups and SMEs. What we do.
Oh,
And the law as well is related to business law. So we're not touching upon litigation. It's purely um, commercial, corporate, and business related
all
uh,
right.
law.
All right. So, what got you to it? Where did you get the idea of jumping into a startup, being a lawyer?
Yeah, so it's a good question. I have practiced law most of my life. So started off at NHS in London in corporate finance team. I then moved in-house into a bank and asset management firm, and then essentially spent a lot of time in-house in the financial services sector.
Mm-hmm.
But round about 2018 is when I decided to actually switch, you know, trajectory and start going helping startups and SMEs.
Yeah.
So in 2016, I personally invested in a platform in the UK called Lawbite. It's a virtual law firm. It was one of the first virtual law firms in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
There are others as well. Came in as a small investor and essentially started providing some services through that platform in 2018
Mm-hmm.
when I left, full-time employment at Rosmala, which is an asset management firm.
Yeah.
And the client profile is very different. So this gave me an opportunity to actually serve SMEs as well as startups. And obviously, the type of work is quite different as well. So being in-house in a big financial services firm, you do a lot of work yourself internally, but you do refer work out. Here it was focused very different. So, early stage, also some growth stage startups,
Mm-hmm.
but also a number of more established SMEs. The budgets are very different, of course, that they. But the interesting thing, I picked up was that some of the startups can scale and grow very fast. So start off essentially bootstrapping, and that's where we are at in our own journey.
Mm-hmm.
But within a year or year and a half time, you're doing a significant, seed round. Then you're doing a Series A,
Mm-hmm.
and seeing that kind of rapid growth was very exciting as well. And also being part of the journey as a legal advisor
Mm-hmm.
for those startups is very exciting. So I think that's essentially what piqued my interest in startups was seeing their development growth from the legal perspective, and I said, this is something I'd be interested in doing myself, so I maybe had that entrepreneurial itch.
Mm-hmm.
And then was thinking about different ideas. Of course, you can call it a bias because I come from the legal profession or professional services.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up falling into that sector, starting a startup that caters to an online marketplace for law, accounting, tax, finance professionals.
Mm-hmm.
I also felt that there's maybe a gap in the market in Pakistan at this point in time, and there are not that many players that are pitching their services directly for this segment, which is a growing segment in Pakistan.
So, in this is only for Pakistani market right now, am I right?
That's right.
Right. Okay, and you started back in January this year.
Yeah.
Okay, and so uh, it, what's your client base like right now? And on the other side as well, the resource that you're providing your clients, what kind of base do you have for that?
Yeah. So starting with, of course, it's a dual-sided marketplace. So you've got the essentially demand side client base. I'll start with that first. Uh, so we've only started commercial operations in July. So essentially we're in our fourth month now. And a lot of what we're doing, of course, is also brand awareness, but also we realize that acquiring clients directly is quite difficult. Especially if you're a new entity in the market. So we've got a partnership-led growth approach. We're going to actually accelerators, incubators, co-working spaces, software technology export parks, anywhere that's got this captive or audience already of startups and SMEs.
Mm-hmm.
And we are pitching ourselves, we see ourselves as a value add proposition for them. So um, you've got that user base over there. I'll give you the example of Fazal Software Technology Park, which is an industrial estate in Islamabad. Fazal Industries is a well-known industrial group,
Yeah.
and they converted their one of their industrial space into the software technology park, which is also registered with Pakistan Software Export Board.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and there are about 25 odd, startups and SMEs there, and they actually were very receptive to us providing a Sidekick service desk,
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of those um, parties start off quite small. There's two or three co-founders, and then their product gains a lot of traction. And of course, a lot of them are software exporters, and they're earning in dollars, which is quite lucrative in Pakistan, and they can scale up quite fast. So we heard of examples of companies that had started, only a year ago that were 5 people, and they're up to 50 employees already, within the span of a year.
Yeah.
The challenge, of course, was that they're so focused on their own skills and growth that they sometimes ignore their clients and legal obligations, which can obviously be costly to them long term if they don't look out for that. So, the owner of the software technology park, in fact, felt that this is a service that they need, because a lot of the founders and entrepreneurs would come to them for some support,
Mm-hmm.
and they're concerned, if they don't have the support at the right time, they may end up getting notices from the government bodies, which may result in them having to down their business or trading. So that is essentially our client base at the moment are technology or tech SMEs. In addition to that, we've actually done, so relying a little bit on our internal resource SAF group. So we've done a B2B to C approach where we kicked this off. We started commercial ops in around July.
Mm-hmm.
That's obviously the tax filing season, in Pakistan as well. So we offered Sidekick as an employee benefit to a few of the SAF group companies as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is essentially going to a corporate and saying that we can as a platform we can provide your employees
Mm-hmm.
and those who need to file an introductory rate, and we'll connect them with tax professionals to do their filing. So we picked up a number of clients that way. We still have a small client base, but we're growing and we're actively speaking and doing more MOUs with co-working spaces, software parks, and others as well. We're speaking to incubators now too.
Okay.
On the other side of the platform, of course, are the professionals. With marketplaces, there's a chicken and egg problem that everyone talks about and stresses about a lot. So we started with the supply side.
Can I add
We
something here? Can I add
Go ahead.
something here? Yeah. Since you're talking about the other part of the question, the supply side, right? In Pakistan, you are a lawyer. You are in a much better position than me to understand this. Though the law profession is the one of the after doctors, they're among the most educated segment of society. But unfortunately, in Pakistan, that education bit has gone literally gone out of the window. So when you're answering that, right, uh, just cover that aspect as well, because uh, even for majority of lawyers, ignorance of law is also a major factor there.
Yeah, so just on the other side, so we started onboarding professionals first. So we are really, you know, in Islamabad and Rawalpindi. Only as of this week, really, we're speaking to some professionals in Lahore as well, and they're specifically finance professionals because that's one of the asks we get a lot these days
Mhm.
from startups is we need help with projections and valuations.
Mhm.
But I'm digressing there. Coming back to this point, we have so this is not a freelancing platform only where we're taking on freelance. In fact, the vast majority of who we've onboarded are small to medium-sized firms,
Mhm.
and it's really a mix. I'd say it's about maybe a third, of tax advisors, accounting firms, and law firms. And we've kept the list fairly small at the moment. So there are about 10 in total with a waiting list of about 20. So the waiting list is essentially, there to manage that supply and demand.
Mhm.
Of course, the firm, some of the larger firms we've got on have up to 50, professionals working for them. So they're fairly sizable with their reach, and they can cater to a number of queries at once as well. So it's not one to one, one client, one professional. That's why we've left the list at about 10. The firms have actually been very receptive to the idea. So I think they, you know, themselves don't have the largest online presence.
Mhm.
And our research, shows us that in Pakistan, less than 1% of professional services are consumed online or availed of online, right? So I think that that is a big challenge for us. We have that at the forefront of our mind. We've done a lot of research on, um, you know, Google search words, the type of volumes you get for different words, and page ranks as well. And very often for words like accounting, legal advice, tax, you get Investopedias or similar websites that are primarily based in the West, coming up very high above providers in Pakistan. So that is a challenge, but we think it's also a major opportunity because you've seen the acceleration of digitization in the last 18 months since the pandemic. Now, I think that this is a frontier that needs to be digitized as well,
Yeah.
and uh, so that we've had the professions be receptive because they've seen that digitization occur, but rather than divert themselves towards doing SEO and creating major online platforms, they feel that this is an interesting way that they can find new revenue streams. And if they're based in Islamabad and Rawalpindi, for example, we can open them up to
Mhm.
work across the country. And ideally, and we're targeting this as well, internationally as well. So we see the diaspora corridors, particularly the UK and Pakistan, as very
Mhm.
lucrative. And we want to position ourselves to cater to that corridor. And I think that I'll touch upon the quality and education factor here. So, the feedback I got as a professional in the UK was, we've been burnt many times dealing in Pakistan. I think it's not just quality, it's also language and cultural barrier. You realize second and third generation Pakistanis, are Pakistani, of course, and are very important, as this government has well recognized. But there are some cultural differences, right? They've grown up in a different environment. So constantly, I had queries myself that can you connect us with an accountant, a lawyer? This is an issue. As a Pakistani who was actually, my parents, my family is all in Islamabad. I would go back to Pakistan on every holiday, right? So someone who had a deeper connection to Pakistan, that's an ask I get a lot from my professional networks, friend networks in Pakistan. So the reason though is, as I said, quality. So very often they have been introduced through word of mouth to some professional, and the quality has not been there, or they've not uh, they effectively not provided that service standard that one is used to in the UK. So this essentially we do vet every single professional before they're allowed to come onto the platform. That includes the firms as well. We have a thorough joining form. They've got to prove their credentials, so they're regulated by their respective bodies if they're regulated, and then we ask around the market about their reputations. And the final aspect of quality assurance you've got here as well is their ratings and reviews. So at the end of every engagement, you're reviewed on your quality, speed, and value for money. So as this grows, you will have a database essentially of feedback and testimonials akin to what you have, on platforms for buying goods, Amazon, for example, which hope will keep the professionals honest and bring up service standards as well. And the final element I add there is we act as a buffer between the two as well. So the way these platforms work is that we expect the client pays us upfront before we ping the professional to commence work. We can do 50% upfront, 50% on completion, but effectively we're holding the monies pending completion of the matter, and then 30 days after completion we aim to pay the professional the fee. So if there's any quality issue in between that, we are there to moderate and essentially ensure that the client gets the best service possible. I think on lawyers specifically, of course I come from the brotherhood of lawyers as well, so I don't want to be too critical there either. But I think that it's not. I mean, I may go a step above, and maybe I'm getting myself more in trouble saying this. I think the regulatory body is not ideally set up in Pakistan. I think the ICAP is a much better regulator than the Pakistan Bar Council. I think if they step up, essentially ensure that there's a more standardized curriculum, become a lawyer, and the process you have to follow, and then the profession is regulated more robustly rather than bodies for politicking and rolling out patronage, etc. I think the profession can uplift its standards. So there are a lot of good lawyers. Of course, there are probably too many lawyers per capita. I think Pakistan does have a very high number, a lot of lawyers, and I think as I said, probably too easy to become a lawyer in Pakistan. You look at other professions, the medical profession, the accounting profession. I think that those kind of filters are probably working a little bit more there. That's my experience.
I believe, first of all, you're not overstepping, right? When you started, got on the journey to digitize the profession, right? You already entered the danger zone that very day when you started digitizing it, because uh, I for as far as like you're just talking about the supply side, as far as the supply side is concerned, it's in my opinion a Herculean task for lawyers to adopt this. First of all, you must have a very stringent vetting process. But if you if you want to compare, you go to the city courts, the environment is totally different, right? But when you step into a professional law firm, that environment is totally different. So these kind of parities do exist, and they are poles apart. Now, coming on to competition, what you guys are trying to do, right? There are already a lot of people I know personally, who are
Mhm.
actually providing these services to startups already, right? Either in company formation, taxation matters, or even helping them recruit resources. Uh, and they are actually very well connected into the ecosystem. They've been there since its nascent days. So, how do you intend to compete with them?
It's a great question, and one we're constantly thinking about. So I think that our really our primary essentially competitor really is traditional firms, right? Not, there are some platforms as well. I can name some names. There's B-Filer, for example, on tax filing, for example. They're doing a fantastic job providing an online platform as well. So they also do company formation, trademark registration as well. But I think that they're relatively small player. I'm sure they're going to grow and scale up quite rapidly as well. They're well positioned, but it's the traditional players I think that you're alluding to, who are set up. They've got their established networks and they're providing these services. So we essentially we a couple of things we see. So because so much of this market is still word of mouth and based on networks,
Mm-hmm.
traditional networks, offline networks.
Yeah.
Uh, we, we we think that affiliate marketing or network marketing, is extremely important for us. So what we're trying to do is have essentially an incentivization structure
Mm-hmm.
from the supply side of our platform as well, where, for example, your accounting firm and your client has a legal inquiry, rather than refer that to a third party lawyer,
Mm-hmm.
you refer it back into the Sidekick platform, and then our platform administration fee or the fixed fee that we charge, is reduced to you as well. So we want to take certain firms as our essentially our affiliate. They're our top ranked or our partner clients. So those are clients either that have high volume or high value work.
Yeah.
They will get first dibs at that work. But in exchange for that, we ask them to refer some of their non-core professional services work into our platform. So we feel that that's one way that we can keep work coming in, also from the supply side,
Mm-hmm.
but also try to kind of break into the networking, kind of marketplaces or referral networks that exist within Pakistan. Um, I think other than that, also, we want to compete on quality. So we are not just a cost player, so to say that we're going to provide something at bargain bottom cheap rates, but we want you to have the best experience possible, and also to have essentially the most streamlined experience as well. So we have very strict service standards in our agreements with professional service providers, and I think we want the service providers to adhere to those standards, so that you get as a client you get a very quality experience and you come back to us for repeat work. So essentially we want to make um, clients be our brand ambassadors and essentially refer our work and our quality of work to them. So it's hard work, but that's our ethos and our philosophy, and we think that that would help us, in a market where there are some very good quality players providing excellent.
Okay. Now, uh, coming to sort of like a technical aspect to any lawsuit or any legal case, if there is, God forbid, any lawsuit against a firm, it is very easy for them to buy time, and cases linger on for years and years. You mentioned earlier that you have a established system where from clients you take the fees upfront, and then you on the supply side, whoever is dealing with it, you make some arrangement with them. Obviously you take your commissions or cuts in between. So how do you maneuver around such exorbitant time frames of cases lingering on for years?
Yeah, so I think you're addressing litigation, right? If
Yeah.
there's a dispute,
Mm,
yeah. So we're not touching disputes at this point.
mhm,
As I said, it's business legal, so essentially transactional and advisory work on the legal side.
mhm,
And then, of course, you've got accounting, taxation, and finance as well. So we essentially the risk about that you're picking up on or highlighting,
yeah,
that cases can linger forever. There's no clear workflow essentially or milestones that you can set.
mhm,
That doesn't work very well with the way this platform is set up.
yeah.
So we're not addressing that for the time being. I think as we gain traction and grow, then we will think about that segment as well.
Okay. Now, final question. We are almost coming to an end here. What sort of inquiries do you get the most? Is it company formation? Because a lot of these startups, they have difficulty in establishing companies in the US as well. There's quite a bit of confusion, or is it just tax filing and accountancy matters?
At the moment, it's tax specifically for
Mhm,
companies and finance, actually, as I mentioned, valuations,
mhm,
projections, and modeling. So that's been the one that we necessarily didn't foresee when we started the platform. Part of the idea of having a marketplace model as well was to give us a springboard to have conversations with startups and SMEs and really understand their pain points and develop from there, right? Rather than assume that we know everything that they need at a certain point in time. So on tax, in particular, when we started commercial ops around about July time, of course, individual filing is going on, but we also realized that it increasing pressure from the regulatory bodies in Pakistan to be compliant,
mhm,
and therefore tax filing is a big one. We get lots of queries on that. And yeah, as I did mention, the suggestion from a lot of startups we spoke to was please add professionals who can help us with financial modeling, projections, and valuations.
mhm,
And this is especially coming from the startups that are in the growth phase, so that they're now looking to do a Series A, for example, or some of them have been trading for a while, bootstrap, organically growing, and are now looking for investment. So, that skill set is certainly need in the Pakistani startup space. And I think that also tells you, maybe shows you that, some of our startups have matured quite a bit in the last 5 to 6 years. That they're not just in the incorporation phase now, but they've been around for uh, a few years,
mhm.
and they're looking to raise significant investment.
Finally, what are you doing about scaling? Because you're only based out of Islamabad right now, maybe you're touching into Lahore as well. The space that you're trying to cater to, it's quite huge, and is only being catered by individuals. Uh, any plans on that? Because there's quite a bit of scope there.
Yeah, I mean, we obviously are head of essentially VP commercial.
Mhm.
Has spent many years in Karachi, working at different companies, right? And a small section of Karachi is we realize is much bigger than all of Islamabad.
Yeah.
An example is the Chamber of Commerce, for example. I think Karachi's got over 40,000 odd companies or entities registered with them. Rawalpindi's only got 8,000, right? So it's a huge different scale there. So what we're doing with our current resource, obviously, this is fully bootstrap startup for now, is we are, as I mentioned, the partnership-led model. So we're already speaking to incubation centers, for example, in Peshawar now. We're speaking to some professionals in Lahore. But I think the next step is going to be to start, once we get some traction, for example, with incubation centers in Islamabad, Peshawar, to also speak to those in Lahore and Karachi as well, and look for other partners there as well. So let's say you take a large co-working space that has a national presence. Our approach is to say, okay, we can pilot or try this out in Islamabad, but then let's work towards rolling this out across the country as well. That can be a virtual service desk model as well, where we can rely on, for example, their reception team to push queries into the platform or onto the website, and then look to scale up in terms of HR, as those partnerships are set up. And I think obviously the other aspect, very important, is also the digital marketing piece. So we're doing a lot of work on that too. In fact, for the first time, we're going to do some Facebook and Instagram ads as well to kind of grow, I think, target all of Pakistan, obviously, through our digital marketing. Marketing plan, not just Islamabad, across.
I don't know if my word carries value here or not, but being a person of
Of course.
strategy, uh, and understanding what you are trying to build here, it's actually a very fantastic thing that you're trying to do. And it would be better for you to you're going to get much more traction if you try and collaborate rather than uh, try and burn money in advertisements, right? Because you are catering more to the corporate sector or the startup ecosystem, right? You're not going into the normal consumer side. Say, for example, if you're in Lahore, you can approach Daftar Khan or Collabs. Those are excellent places where you can get quite a bit of traction from. You've got lots of startups housed there. Then even NIC Lahore, if you want, I can also help you get connected to NIC in Karachi with Umar Abdeen. I know him very well. So my suggestion would be to do a bit of digital marketing, but
Yeah.
don't burn money there. You are
I,
going to be much better off in collaborations.
I agree with you. I know that's a great suggestion, and on the getting us connected with Umar Abdeen, I'll message you offline as well. Uh, I definitely like to get in touch with him. So we're in touch with NIC Islamabad and NIC Peshawar already. Having those conversations, we're in touch with Daftar Khan in Islamabad. I think collabs will be coming soon.
Yeah.
I believe that they've got a space, opening probably this year. So yeah, they're on our target list, and I think that is the key way. Collaborations, partnerships is how we wish to expand. The digital marketing is actually it's a tiny budget, but so just to be transparent here, it's only for this month it's 15,000 rupees. We're experimenting with it, right? But we're obviously using the digital marketing to the organic to build our brand presence online, right? Because there's no brand awareness about being a new brand. So it's a lot about brand awareness, brand presence. But the paid ads is a very, very limited budget, and just to experiment with, and also maybe use to seek out, areas where I think I'll give credit to a digital marketing agency, but they said there's increasing amount of bloggers and influencers in Pakistan, for example, and they do face issues, and, Instagram, other such issues as well, content related, IP related issues. So could they be potential clients? Let's experiment with that, float it. So we're kind of open to ideas now. I think, being at this early stage, we can be nimble, but you're exactly right. You hit the nail on the head. We're
Like,
not
say for
expecting.
example, you've got a representative, one catering to NIC Islamabad, one to Lahore, one to Peshawar, one to Karachi, right? So you can have a bigger pool of business coming into your basket to cater to, because they've got a huge backup of startups with them, and they all do need advice. Even the NICs also, they do advise on legality themselves, but they've got arrangements again with those individuals, right? There's no such established law practice or a firm that is actually doing this. So best of luck with this, Asif. This is an interesting concept you have there. Not a freelance marketplace sort of thing, but more of a facilitator to help the larger ecosystem for startups and for the better part of the corporate world. This thing needs digitization more than anything, I believe, because the infrastructure for imparting law services is very fragmented. I mean, there's no structure at all, really. So, best of luck with this. Thank you. I think we'll call it a day here. Thank you very much for coming on to Startup Talks. Or hopefully, once you are settled and back in Pakistan, we'll try and do this again sometime when there's some traction and there's some growth.
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity.
Mm.
Appreciate it very much.
No, thank you. The pleasure is mine. Have a great week then.
Take
Thank you.
care.
Allah Hafiz. Allah Hafiz.